The latest from Sri Lanka, as the country was rocked by 6 explosions in the morning today, as explosions have hit 3 churches and 3 hotels in and around the Sri Lankan capital of Colombo. This is the big story we are tracking this hour. At least 100 people have been reported to be killed. Several foreigners are also feared to be dead in these attacks. The blast hit several high-end hotels and one church in the capital of Colombo, while 2 additional churches were targeted outside Colombo. The police have verified these explosions. There were initial reports of at least 300 people being admitted to hospitals in Colombo. Now, an eyewitness account by a Sri Lankan Member of Parliament, Harsha De Silva, who was at St. Anthony's Church in Colombo at the time of explosion, described the horrible scenes at the church. According to the legislator, he saw many body parts strewn all over. Several people were rushed to the hospital soon after the blasts. It's important to tell you the location of these blasts. The blasts in Sri Lankan churches happened during Easter Mass. The first explosion was reported at St. Anthony's Kochikode Church in Colombo. Another explosion was at the Negambo Church. A third took place near the Wion Church in Batikalau. Coming to the hotels that were targeted, an explosion rocked the Shangri-La Hotel in Colombo. It was also reported at Cinnamon Grand Hotels, again in Colombo, and Kingsbury Hotel, also in Colombo. Meanwhile, the Lankan Prime Minister has called for an emergency meeting to assess the situation. Emergency crews have been pressed into action. The government has requested the people to stay indoors and stay calm. Meanwhile, the Lankan government has declared holiday for all schools as a precautionary measure for next 2 days. Now, in a first official reaction from the Sri Lankan government to the deadly blasts, the Sri Lankan Finance Minister Mangala Samaraswira tweeted condemning these heinous attacks. He called it a well-coordinated attempt to create murder, mayhem and anarchy, and said that all those who cherish democracy, freedom and economy, prosperity must unite now with nerves of steel to defeat this heinous attempt. Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena also condemned these attacks and urged citizens to not believe in any rumours. He said, and I quote, "I'm shocked and saddened by the situation that has occurred. Investigations have been launched to look into what conspiracy is behind these heinous acts. Please remain calm and do not be fooled by rumours at this critical moment in the country's history. There are many rumours and fake news stories circulating. Please take care not to be fooled by fake news, rumours, and trust only verified news providers." Also, there's an ongoing meeting between heads of Sri Lankan Army, Navy and Air Force. An official statement is set to be released soon. Meanwhile, let's also look at India's External Affairs Minister, who also tweeted. Sushma Swaraj tweeted saying that she is in constant touch with Indian High Commissioner in Colombo and that she's keeping a close watch on the situation. As Indian Embassy in Colombo has issued helpline numbers for Indians in need of assistance and any clarification. Now, Indians in distress may call the following numbers, and let me announce them: +94 777 90 3082, +94 11 24 22 788, +94 11 24 22 789, +94 777 90 2082, and +94 77 22 34 176. Other nations and world leaders have also condemned these ghastly attacks in Sri Lanka. Messages have started pouring in from different quarters. Foreign Minister of Maldives has tweeted his condolences and prayers for the people and families affected by Sri Lanka attacks. Now, Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued a statement, and I quote, "Pakistan condemns explosions and terrorist attacks in Sri Lanka at churches and hotels that have led to numerous casualties and immense loss. People and government of Pakistan stand by people and government of Sri Lanka at this moment of tragedy and against terror." This is all the latest that we can bring to you. There's more information coming in as the security around the airports has also been beefed up. All passengers have been requested to report 4 hours prior to departure. Schools have also been shut, since we all are aware that Easter had taken place today and there was an extended break for Easter for school children. Now schools have been shut for another day. I'm also joined in by Rajiva Vijaysinha. the former education minister. He joins us live from Colombo. Rajiv, right now, what's very important is to actually emphasize on how, there are also fake news reports doing the round. And as the Sri Lankan Prime Minister rightly requested people to steer clear of unverified reports, it's important to actually steer clear of speculation also at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. But I think it's also important that government should come clear and make it very, very obvious what intelligence, if any, they received. For instance, what both Neomal and your other correspondents mentioned wasn't well enough known. There was no alert given to people about this. And government really needs to be very serious about this type of thing, because rumors are going to spread if government doesn't come clean. I'm very glad they're having this meeting, but it should have happened if the IGP's advice was in any sense given on time. We should have had emergency precautions taken earlier, because obviously today, Easter Sunday, is a very vulnerable day for many people. And it's tragic that we have to have had so much loss of life before government takes responsibility seriously. I'm going to ask you, please, if you have any more questions, to go ahead now, because I've been asked for another couple of interviews. So
right.
I'd like
Rajiv,
to
I'm just going to let you go. But before that, I have one short question, and that I just can't help but request you to talk about the Christian community in Sri Lanka. As you rightly mentioned, today is Easter. Why weren't emergency, adequate incentives taken? There had to be a security arrangement that should have been in place. And the Christian community, as we earlier spoke about, has already been, a target of persecution in Sri Lanka. And it's important for you to talk about this community, which has been seen as a unifying force, as they also include people from the Tamil and majority Sinhalese ethnic groups.
Well, you have to remember that one of the unusual factors about today's attacks in Colombo is that they were against Catholic churches. You see, what we had in the period 2005 to 2008 was a lot of attacks on what you would call revivalist churches, who tended to be a bit on your face. The Methodist Church attack was very worrying last week. I just noticed, I think, that the Vatican Church was a Zionist church. But this attack on Catholics is absolutely unprecedented. Now, I have no idea what the IGP's warning was about, but I think we also had to have a situation where, given that the country had been without such terrorist attacks of this nature, as opposed to the bullying that took place in Anuradhapura, they obviously didn't want to have panic and try to reintroduce the checkpoints that this country suffered from 30 years. But obviously there has to be a massive shake-up of our intelligence agencies.
Absolutely. And Rajiv, I'm sorry to have interjected at the moment. I'm sorry to have interjected, but since you just mentioned that, we are learning from confirmed sources that the Sri Lanka police chief had warned of the suicide blast 10 days ago. And if this does have any substance, what does this speak of the current government in Sri Lanka?
Well, as I've said before in several contexts, the current government is totally dysfunctional. It has no care for the people at all. It is engaged in shadow boxing, both within parties and without parties, with regard to the next presidential election. And, that's this wonderful tradition of what we do here where no one does things. And actually, nothing.
All right, Rajiv Vijayasena giving us all the latest and sharing his precious perspective with us, former education minister from Colombo. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv Vijayasena. Now, for the latest also, let's go across to our correspondent. We will continue to bring you the latest through our correspondents who are joining us from Sri Lanka at the moment. Let me also give you a quick update on what we are learning. At least 9 foreigners have been reportedly dead in these 6 bombings that have taken place in Sri Lanka today. We are also learning that schools in Sri Lanka have been instructed to remain shut till Wednesday. Schools had an extended Easter break and now they've been instructed to remain shut. Latest reports also indicate that the death toll has risen above 100, and over 300 have been reportedly injured and ferried to hospitals. 160 to be precise about the death toll. At least 9 foreigners have been killed. There are 6 blasts that rocked Sri Lanka, including 3 hotels and 3 churches. The police had warned of a possible suicide bombing attack 10 days ago. This is the latest that we are learning, that the Sri Lanka police chief had already warned of suicide blasts. He had made a nationwide alert 10 days ago, before Sunday's bomb attacks in the country, that suicide bombers were already planning to hit prominent churches. This was a warning that he had extended more than a week ago. The police chief that we are referring to right now is Pujut Jayasundara. According to reports, he sent an intelligence warning to top officers, and this was nearly 10 days ago. He flagged off the threat. To quote him, a foreign intelligence agency has reported that an organization named the NTJ, the National Tawhid Jamaat, is planning to carry out suicide attacks targeting prominent churches as well as the Indian High Commission in Colombo. And speaking of the Indian High Commission, India's Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj has also tweeted talking about how the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka is keeping a strict vigil on all Indians present in Sri Lanka. Now let's also go across to another journalist who joins me on the phone line, Lahiru Potamulla. Lahiru, what is the latest that you're picking on? This, of course, has been a dastardly attack, because we're looking at an attack that targeted people in worship. This is deeply abominable.
Yes, this is, as you mentioned, a strategically placed attack. It has to be some organized organization. It's well planned. To attack, to aim all these devotees at churches and those who are gathered at star hotels in Colombo. It has to be an organized group. So far we have the casualties, the updates, but the law enforcement authorities have not yet named a specific organization for the as the culprit of the attacks.
Right. Lahiru, we are also learning from confirmed sources that the Sri Lankan police chief had already warned of this suicide blast 10 days ago. What does this speak of the current government?
There are reports that intelligence sources have disclosed that there's going to be an attack several days ago, and the top authorities of the government has neglected this. But I can't confirm that as true, because we have yet to receive, the government is yet to announce a proper statement. I don't know the authenticity of those reports as of yet.
All right, Lahiru, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us all the details. I'm also joined in by Jehan Pereira, Executive Director of National Peace Council. Jehan, your take on these dastardly attacks that have completely rocked Sri Lanka today, and how would you analyze the modus operandi of these attacks, since we're looking at 3 high-end hotels who have been targeted? Not to forget, it's Easter, and that 3 churches were also under these attacks.
Yeah, the two main features to me are that, one, it is a very well-planned, coordinated attack, which therefore would require a lot of resources and a lot of presence on the ground. That is one point. The second point is that there is an attempt to make it into a religious issue by targeting the Catholics or this absolutely bestial type of attack. And also we have heard that there have been, on the social media, there are allegations that this could possibly be Muslim. But I personally don't believe that at all. I don't believe that we have bad relations with the Catholics have bad relations with the Muslims in Sri Lanka. We don't have that. That's not a conflict situation at all. Then there is possibly the motive of that, of targeting the Catholics, is to and turn the sort of point the finger towards the Muslim, is to bring in the international dimension. Again, I'm skeptical about that. My surmise at this time, when there is really no evidence being brought forward officially by the government, is that it is a domestic, it is planned and done, executed domestically. So
right.
Again, I have
Mr.
to say
Pereira,
that I am
how
not
do you
sure.
react to reports that the police chief in Sri Lanka had already flagged off about these suicide bombing missions 10 days ago? The reports also suggest that even the Indian High Commission was being targeted in Colombo.
Yes, but as your previous speaker said, this has not been authenticated by the government. We are not sure whether this so-called internal memo is actually a true one, because it does name apparently it names the possible culprits who are going to do this. So there is a question of authenticity about that claim.
Right, but Mr. Pereira, the immense rise in the attacks targeting Christians is an open secret. This is a reality that we cannot deny. Why are Christians being targeted for, why are they targets of multicultural instances of persecution?
Really, the targeting of Christians in Sri Lanka is on a very small scale. It has to do
that
with
they are being targeted
groups.
is something we cannot deny, right?
No, I would not want to say that they are being targeted, because Christians are there in all
right. Are you sure, Mr. Pereira, when there have been 3 explosions in churches, that too during the Easter Mass, would you still say that Christians are not being targeted in Sri Lanka?
No, in this particular incident, yes. In this particular incident, Christians have been targeted. And actually I'm wondering why. Because there has been no basis. There is no basis for this type of massive attack, which is coordinated, which hits the hotels. Which brings into discredit the whole government, the government system, the government intelligence, the government security apparatus. Everything is being called into question. See, the attacks against, there have been attacks against Christians.
Right.
They are with very small churches, evangelical churches, accused of engaging in some conversion, stoning of the churches. That's the type of anti-Christian attacks that there has been. No loss of life, stonings, shouting at the Christians, sort of preventing them from holding their services. In small, and these are not the main churches. These are the small churches that have been set up in new areas, not mainstream churches. So I'm wondering how is it that suddenly the Catholic Church should be attacked?
Right, and this, as we learn, is an unfolding story. We will in some time soon learn who caused these attacks. But, the other aspect of these attacks that draws our attention is, of course, the high-end hotels that have been targeted in Colombo. We all know that Colombo is among the top holiday destination for all foreigners. Reports have just confirmed that 9 foreigners have lost their lives. Mr. Pereira, how would you react to the hotels that have now experienced these explosions?
Yeah, so I think it's clear. The message is that Sri Lanka is not safe, that the government has not been able to protect the hotels, the tourist industry, and we are also heading for an election within the next 6 months. And already there's a lot of talk about who might be the presidential candidates, etc. So it is in this context that I'm seeing this. But of course, this is all speculative. It has just happened this morning. The government has not made an announcement. No evidence has been produced as to who might be behind this. All rumors, all speculation. But I feel fairly strongly that I would like to rule out any international Muslim sort of conspiracy against Sri Lanka. There has been no indication of that, no evidence, nothing at all of that.
All right, but that again would be speculative. So to take a concrete stance on any theory at the moment would be difficult. But would you actually rule out the recent political crisis having a role to play in these blasts? Would you rule that out too?
No, I won't rule. But actually, I'm more inclined to see this as something domestic. The planning, execution as domestic.
Which is why, Mr. Pereira, I said that's why I ask you if the recent political crisis that's been going on for quite some time, and as you rightly mentioned, the elections are around the corner in Sri Lanka, do you think that could also have a role to play?
Well, it will certainly have a role. It will have an impact on those elections. What has happened today is bound to have an impact on those elections unless the government is able to find out who did it.
Right. Also, so what is the extent of damage that, that has been caused now to the churches and the hotels? We see in these images and our hearts bleed, It's been the most dastardly attack that Sri Lanka has witnessed, because this is not what Sri Lanka has ever been like to us, because these 6 explosions have been massive and they've completely shocked not just Sri Lanka, but the entire world.
150 dead and 300 injured. And it has happened also not only in Colombo, but also in the Tamil areas in the east. So it is not only affecting the Sinhala population, it also affects the Tamil population, because Sinhalese and Tamils, there are Christians among both of them, which also kind of rules out an LTT sort of action, or Tamil diaspora-led action. So again, that undermines the case for an international role in this.
Right, Mr. Pereira, which is why, that this makes it, interestingly, this shows that, the Christian community has been particularly targeted. As you also rightly mentioned, that both the Sinhalese and Tamil ethnic groups have Christians. So that the Christians are the unifying forces behind these two ethnic groups, the Tamilians and the Sinhalese in Sri Lanka.
Yes, I know. That is why, I mean, we then immediately come to the surmise that since it's not Sinhalese and Tamils fighting each other, then who else would want to target the the Christians? And on such a large scale, and who has the capacity? See, there are also Buddhist sort of extremist groups, so they are very small. They are not able to, and I mean, they have not shown this type of violence. So therefore, then what we are left with when the Christians are targeted is to think that it's some international force, and Sri Lanka is too weak to deal with the international forces. That's the idea that is thought to be projected.
Absolutely, and a lot of answering to be done by the government over there, since reports have already surfaced that the Sri Lanka police chief had warned of suicide blasts 10 days ago, and these are confirmed reports. And even though the emergency meetings are on, this is an unfolding story, and we will have more details surfacing in some time from now. But for now, Jehan Pereira, thank you so much for bringing us all the latest on these explosions that have rocked Sri Lanka.